Hey there, welcome back to 2 No Stories. Hope you're doing great today. Let's jump right into the story. The rhythmic tapping of rain against the kitchen window blended with the hum of the coffee machine, filling the air with the scent of fresh brew. Alex Carter took a slow sip from his mug, staring blankly at his laptop screen. It was just another Monday morning in Seattle, or at least it was supposed to be. His 10-year-old son, Jason, sat at the dining table, hunched over his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard at an alarming speed. "Morning, buddy," Alex said, ruffling Jason's messy dark hair as he walked by. "Morning, Dad," Jason responded without looking up, his focus locked onto the screen. Alex chuckled, leaning against the counter. "What's got you so busy this early?" Jason finally glanced up, his piercing blue eyes gleaming. "Just a project." That was Jason, always working on something. Unlike other kids who spent hours playing video games, Jason built them. He wasn't just good with computers, he was brilliant. His teachers had already recommended advanced courses, and at just 10 years old, he could take apart a laptop and rebuild it in record time. Alex had always been proud of Jason's intelligence. He had envisioned an Ivy League education for him, a bright future paved with endless possibilities. That was why they had spent 10 years carefully building his college fund, ensuring that his son would have every opportunity available to him. But what Alex didn't know was that by the end of the day, that future would be stolen. Alex's phone buzzed with a notification. He glanced at the screen, expecting another work email. Instead, his heart stopped. Bank alert. Large withdrawal from college fund. $50,000. His grip tightened around his phone. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. His hand shook slightly as he quickly opened the banking app. His stomach dropped. The college fund, the account that had taken a decade to build, was completely empty. His breath came short and fast as he scrolled through the transaction history. The entire balance had been transferred to an unknown account just 3 hours ago. His first instinct was to think it was a banking error. Maybe there was some mistake. Maybe it was just a temporary hold. But then, a much worse thought crossed his mind. His wife, Laura. Alex quickly dialed Laura's number, straight to voicemail. His stomach twisted. He tried again. Voicemail. He sent a text. "Laura, call me." Now. No response. His pulse pounded in his ears. His mind raced through every possibility. Maybe she had been hacked. Maybe she had transferred the money for something urgent and just forgot to tell him. But deep down, he knew. Something wasn't right. His gaze flickered to Jason, who was still typing away. "Hey, buddy," Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Have you heard from Mom?" Jason's fingers paused over the keyboard for a fraction of a second. His shoulders stiffened slightly. "She sent me a text last night," Jason said slowly, pulling out his phone. "She said she'd be gone for a while." Alex's heart sank. "Gone where?" Jason shrugged. "She didn't say." Something about the way Jason spoke made Alex uneasy. His son was too calm, too unshaken. Then Jason looked up, his voice eerily steady. "But don't worry, Dad. I'm fixing it." Alex's stomach tightened. Fixing what? Jason spun his laptop toward him. Multiple windows filled the screen. Bank records, security camera feeds, and cryptocurrency transactions. Alex's breath caught in his throat. "What? What is this?" Jason's expression remained unreadable. "I'm finding Mom," he said. Alex sank into a chair, staring at the laptop screen. "Jason," he said slowly, "explain this to me." His son exhaled, his fingers tapping against the table. "Mom emptied the college fund," Jason said, his voice calm, too calm. "I checked the transfer logs. She moved the money into a crypto account first, then sent it to a secondary offshore bank account." Alex's blood ran cold. "How do you even know how to do this?" Jason shrugged. "I looked it up." "Looked it up?" Alex repeated, his voice shaking with disbelief. Jason, this is illegal. You can't just— Jason spun the laptop back toward him. A live security feed appeared on the screen. A hotel entrance. The name at the top. The Ritz-Carlton, Miami. A woman walked through the glass doors, her arm linked with another man. Laura. Alex felt like he had been punched in the stomach. His wife, the woman he had trusted with their family, their finances, their son's future, was walking into a 5-star hotel in another city, with a stranger. And she was smiling, laughing, as if she hadn't just ripped their family apart. Alex's hands clenched into fists. "Who the hell is that?" he asked through gritted teeth. Jason didn't even blink. "His name is Damian Wolf," Jason said. "He's a financial broker, but mostly he's a con artist." Alex's head snapped toward Jason. "How do you know all this?" Jason met his gaze, his expression unreadable. "Because I did my research." Alex rubbed his temples, his mind spinning. "Jason, this isn't a game." Jason finally looked up, his voice flat, emotionless. "Dad," he said, "Mom stole my future. I'm just taking it back." A chill ran down Alex's spine. His 10-year-old son wasn't reacting like a devastated child. He was reacting like someone preparing for war. "Jason," Alex said carefully, "what exactly are you planning?" Jason's lips curled into a slight, knowing smile. "Trust me, Dad," he said. "I'm fixing everything." Alex swallowed hard. His brilliant, methodical son wasn't just tracking his mother. He was building something. Something big. And Laura? She had no idea what was coming. Alex Carter had always believed that the worst pain a man could experience was losing someone he loved. But now, as he sat in his dimly lit home office, staring at the security footage of his wife wrapped around another man in a 5-star hotel, he realized he had been wrong. The worst pain wasn't losing someone. It was realizing that they had betrayed you long before they ever left. Laura hadn't just stolen from him. She had stolen from Jason's future, and that was something he could never forgive. The only sound in the room was the quiet tapping of Jason's fingers against his laptop keyboard. Alex looked over at his son, who was unusually calm, his sharp blue eyes locked on the screen as if he were just working on another coding project. "You said you were fixing it," Alex said, his voice hoarse. "What exactly does that mean, Jason?" Jason didn't look up. "It means I'm taking back what's ours." Alex's chest tightened. "Jason, you're 10. You can't just—" Jason finally turned toward him, his expression unreadable. "She used my name on the account, Dad. She thought I wouldn't find out. But she forgot one thing." Alex swallowed. "What's that?" Jason's lips curled into the faintest smirk. "I'm smarter than she is." Alex watched as Jason pulled up a series of accounts, all tied to Laura and Damian. "She moved the money into crypto first," Jason explained. "But she didn't use a cold wallet. She left a digital footprint when she transferred it to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands." Alex frowned. "And how do you know that?" Jason shrugged. "Because I backtracked the transaction through the blockchain. It wasn't even that hard." Alex blinked. His son, his 10-year-old son, had just casually tracked down hidden offshore funds like it was a school project. "Jason, this is serious," Alex said, rubbing his temples. "You could get in trouble for—" Jason turned the laptop screen toward him. "You're worried about me, Dad. You should be worried about Mom." Alex's blood ran cold as he stared at the figures displayed on the screen. Laura hadn't just taken Jason's $50,000 college fund. She had funneled over $200,000 into different accounts, money that didn't belong to her. Alex's breath caught. Where did all this money come from? Jason clicked on another folder, pulling up dozens of financial transactions linked to Damian Wolf's brokerage firm. "He's been running scams," Jason said matter-of-factly. "Investment fraud. He convinces people to move their money into his investment fund and then disappears with it. Mom was helping him." Alex felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. His wife wasn't just a cheater, she was a criminal, and she had used their son's name to cover her tracks. Alex clenched his fists. "Jason," he said slowly, "what exactly are you planning to do?" Jason smiled. "Fix everything." Jason moved like a professional hacker, his fingers effortlessly typing strings of code while Alex watched in awe and fear. "First, we need to recover the college fund," Jason said, his voice calm and calculated. "Then we make sure Damien and Mom can't run any more scams." Alex hesitated. "And how do you plan on doing that?" Jason pulled up Damien's offshore bank account. "You see, when you steal from people, you have to be careful. You don't keep all your money in one place. But Damien got greedy. He kept some funds in an account under a fake identity." Alex stared at him. "And you found it?" Jason nodded. "It wasn't even hard. He reused an old alias from another scam he ran in Texas 3 years ago. I backtraced it, bypassed the bank's security firewalls, and—" Jason hit enter. The screen flashed, "Transfer complete." Alex's breath hitched. "Jason, what did you just do?" Jason smiled. "I moved our money back." Alex blinked. "You... what?" Jason tilted the screen toward him, revealing their old college fund balance. Restored. Alex sat back, staring at his son. "You just stole from a criminal." Jason shrugged. "He stole from us first." Alex should have been angry, should have been terrified, but instead, he felt proud. That night, as Alex sat at the dining table, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Laura. His jaw clenched. He debated not answering. But Jason, sitting across from him, nodded slightly. "Put it on speaker," Jason said. Alex exhaled and picked up. "Alex!" Laura's voice was frantic. "You have to help me." Alex leaned back, his expression cold. "Help you?" "It's Damien," Laura cried. "Something's wrong. His accounts are frozen. Our money is gone. He's freaking out, saying someone hacked his funds." Alex exchanged a glance with Jason, who gave him a knowing smirk. "That's terrible, Laura," Alex said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I wonder how that could have happened." Laura paused. Then her voice turned softer. "Baby, please, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you and Jason. I got caught up in something I couldn't get out of. We can fix this." Jason leaned forward. "Did you fix my college fund, Mom?" he asked. Laura went silent. Jason smirked. "Don't worry, I did." Laura gasped. "Jason, what did you do?" Jason's voice was cold. "I fixed everything, Mom, just like I told Dad I would." Laura's breathing hitched. "No. Jason, you don't understand. Damien's in trouble, and if his accounts are locked, we—" "You mean you're in trouble," Jason corrected. Laura started crying. "Jason, sweetheart, please, I love you. I made a mistake, but I'm still your mother." Jason tilted his head. "You stopped being my mother when you stole my future." Silence. Then Jason hung up. Alex stared at his son, who sat back, his expression blank. "Are you okay?" Alex asked. Jason exhaled. "Yeah, I just feel relieved." Alex nodded. "Me too." For the first time since Laura left, it felt like the storm had passed. And Laura, she was on her own. For good. The house was eerily quiet, save for the occasional sound of Jason's fingers tapping against his keyboard. The glow from his laptop screen illuminated his face, revealing an expression of calm, unwavering focus. Alex Carter sat across from his son, watching him work. It had been less than 24 hours since Laura's frantic call, begging for help. Since then, her world had started to unravel, and she still didn't know the full extent of the damage Jason had inflicted. That was the thing about true revenge. It didn't have to be loud. It didn't have to be violent. Sometimes it was silent, methodical, and absolutely devastating. Jason cracked his knuckles before typing another string of code. "So, what are you doing now?" Alex asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and awe. Jason didn't look up. "I'm making sure they can't run." Alex frowned. Run? Jason pulled up a list of fake identities linked to Damian Wolf. He's been using aliases for years, Jason explained. Every time he scams someone, he ditches his real name, moves money around, and starts over somewhere else. Alex's jaw tightened. And Laura? Jason smirked. She's attached to him now, which means she's going down with him. Alex exhaled, leaning back in his chair. His 10-year-old son had just done what law enforcement hadn't been able to do for years. And the scariest part? Jason wasn't done. Damian Wolf prided himself on being untouchable. He had swindled millions over the years, jumping from one scam to the next without leaving enough of a trail for authorities to track him. He had always been careful, always one step ahead. Until now. Jason had hacked into Damian's brokerage firm's internal system. It took him less than an hour to uncover evidence of fraud, tax evasion, and multiple stolen investments. With a few keystrokes, Jason did something that no victim had ever managed to do. He exposed Damian from the inside. Send, Jason muttered, clicking a final button. Alex leaned forward. Sent to who? Jason smirked. To everyone. Within minutes, the SEC, the IRS, and the FBI received detailed reports of illegal transactions, falsified tax documents, and a comprehensive list of all the accounts Damian had laundered money through. Damian Wolf was about to become public enemy number one, and the best part? He wouldn't even see it coming. Meanwhile, in a luxury suite at the Ritz-Carlton in Miami, Laura paced back and forth, her heart pounding. Damian, we have to leave, she hissed, gripping her phone. Damian sat on the couch, swirling a glass of whiskey, unfazed. Relax, babe. Everything's fine. Laura clenched her fists. No, it's not fine. Our accounts are frozen. My cards aren't working. And Jason said something weird when I called Alex. I think he knows. Damian sighed, setting his drink down. So, what if he does? He's a kid. Laura shook her head. You don't understand. Jason isn't... She was cut off by Damian's phone vibrating on the table. A notification popped up. SEC alert. Active investigation opened against Wolf Brokerage Firm. Damian's smirk vanished. What the hell? He grabbed his phone and scrolled frantically. His expression twisted into pure panic. Laura peered over his shoulder. What is it? Damian jumped to his feet, nearly knocking over the coffee table. It's over, he muttered, grabbing his jacket. We have to go. Now. Laura's stomach dropped. Where? Damian was already stuffing documents into a duffel bag. Mexico. I have a contact who can get us fake passports. Laura hesitated. What about my money? Damian laughed bitterly. There is no money, Laura. It's gone. Her blood ran cold. Jason. That little brat had somehow taken it all back. And now she was broke, on the run, and out of options. Back in Seattle, Jason sat back in his chair, watching everything unfold. You sure they won't get away? Alex asked. Jason smiled. Oh, I'm sure. He had already made the final move. Earlier that morning, Jason had anonymously tipped off Border Control and Interpol, giving them exact locations, fake passport details, and a flight number. If Damian and Laura tried to flee, they wouldn't even make it past customs. Alex exhaled. So, what happens now? Jason shrugged. Now, we wait. At Miami International Airport, Damian and Laura moved toward their gate, trying to act normal. Laura adjusted her sunglasses, her hands trembling as she clutched her fake passport. Damian gripped her arm. Just stay cool. They stepped up to the security checkpoint. The officer scanned their passports. Then his face changed. Sir, ma'am, I need you to step aside. Laura's stomach dropped. Behind them, 4 uniformed officers approached. Damian Wolf and Laura Carter? One officer asked. Damian tried to run, but he didn't make it far. Within seconds, he was tackled to the ground. Laura screamed, trying to push past the officers, but she was quickly restrained. And as she was dragged away, she knew exactly who had done this. Jason, her own son. 3 days later, Alex sat in his lawyer's office. He signed the finalized divorce papers and set them down, exhaling deeply. It was over. Laura had been charged with financial fraud and would likely face years in prison. Damien? He was looking at even worse. And Jason. Jason had just secured his future in a way no one ever expected. The college fund, fully restored. Their accounts, secured. Their life, finally free of Laura's lies. As they left the office, Jason turned to Alex. "Are you happy, Dad?" Alex smiled for the first time in months. "Yeah, kid," he said. "I really am." Jason smirked, pulling out his phone. "Good, because I just got accepted into an advanced cybersecurity course." Alex shook his head, laughing. "Just promise me you'll use your powers for good, okay?" Jason grinned. "No guarantees." For the first time in a long time, Alex felt hope. He and Jason had lost everything. But in the end, they had won. And Laura, she was nothing more than a cautionary tale. The cool morning air carried a crisp autumn scent as Alex Carter pulled his jacket tighter around his body. He stood outside Seattle's federal courthouse, gripping a hot cup of coffee, watching the city wake up. Today was the day of reckoning. Today, Laura and Damien would finally face justice. Alex had spent weeks preparing for this moment, yet as he stood on the courthouse steps, he felt none of the anger that had once consumed him. He wasn't here for revenge. He was here for closure, and maybe, just maybe, for Jason, because his 10-year-old son had been the mastermind behind everything that had led them here. And that fact alone both amazed and terrified Alex. The courtroom was cold and sterile, its walls lined with solemn-faced reporters and restless onlookers. The scandal surrounding Damien Wolf's investment fraud and Laura Carter's involvement had spread like wildfire. People loved a good fall from grace, and today they were about to witness one. Laura sat at the defendant's table, her hair neatly styled, but the dark circles under her eyes betrayed the reality of her situation. She wore a modest gray suit, a stark contrast to the luxury she once flaunted. Damien, however, was a different story. He looked disheveled, exhausted, his once expensive suit wrinkled, his face unshaven. His lawyer whispered furiously in his ear, but he barely acknowledged it. Because he knew. They both knew. There was no escaping this. The room hushed as Jason was called to the stand. A 10-year-old boy, the prosecution's star witness. Laura's eyes widened, her lips parted in shock as she realized what was happening. Her own son was about to testify against her. Jason climbed onto the chair, adjusting the microphone in front of him. Despite his age, he looked completely unbothered, as if he were presenting a science project instead of exposing his mother's crimes. The prosecutor, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, approached with a warm smile. "Jason, can you tell us how you discovered what your mother and Damien were doing?" Jason nodded. "Mom was always secretive about money, but I noticed she started acting differently a few months ago. She was talking about cryptocurrency, saying she had a way to double our savings." He glanced toward Laura, his expression void of emotion. "Then, one day, I checked the college fund," Jason continued, "and it was gone. So, I started looking into it." The courtroom murmured in disbelief. Jason went on, detailing how he had tracked the transactions, uncovered offshore accounts, and traced Damien's scam network. Damien shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Laura looked pale. The prosecutor leaned forward. "Jason, how did you manage to access all this information?" Jason shrugged. "I used logic." A chuckle rippled through the audience. Laura finally snapped. "You hacked us, Jason," she burst out. The judge banged the gavel. "Mrs. Carter, remain silent." But Jason didn't even blink. He simply turned toward his mother and said, "You shouldn't have used my name on the accounts." Laura's breath hitched. Damien buried his face in his hands, because in that moment, everyone in the room knew They had been taken down by a 10-year-old boy. The courtroom waited in silence as the judge reviewed the charges. Alex clenched his fists. He knew what he wanted to hear, but there was still a part of him that worried. Finally, the judge spoke. "Mr. Wolf, your fraudulent activities, money laundering, and multiple counts of financial fraud have caused substantial harm to your victims. I am sentencing you to 25 years in federal prison." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Damien's face drained of color. "Mrs. Carter," the judge continued, turning toward Laura. "While your involvement in these crimes may not have been as extensive as your co-conspirators, your deliberate participation in money laundering, theft, and conspiracy cannot be ignored. You are sentenced to 15 years in prison." Laura let out a strangled gasp. She turned toward Alex, then toward Jason, her eyes pleading. "Please," she sobbed. "Alex, Jason, I made a mistake." Jason's face remained blank. "You stole from me," he said, his voice calm but cutting. "This is what happens to thieves, Mom." Alex exhaled, running a hand through his hair. It was over. For good. After the sentencing, Alex and Jason walked out of the courthouse, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on them. "You okay, bud?" Alex asked. Jason nodded. "Yeah, He hesitated. "I don't think I feel anything about her anymore." Alex studied his son carefully. "That's okay. You don't have to." Jason took a deep breath. "Can we go get burgers now?" Alex laughed, ruffling his hair. "Yeah, let's go get burgers." As they stepped into the parking lot, a voice called after them. "Alex." They turned to see Michelle Wolf, Damien's ex-wife, a woman who had lost everything because of his scams. "Wait up," she said, catching her breath. "I just wanted to say, thank you." Alex raised an eyebrow. "For what?" Michelle turned to Jason, smiling. "For what your son did. Because of him, I was able to recover some of my stolen assets. He's incredible." Jason shrugged. "It wasn't that hard." Michelle laughed. "Well, still, I owe you both dinner." Alex hesitated for a second, then smiled. "Yeah," he said, "I think we'd like that." A few months later, life had completely changed. The college fund, secured and doubled thanks to Jason's interest calculations. Laura? Gone. Damien? Gone. Their lives? Better than ever. Alex had finalized the divorce, ensuring that Laura would never have access to Jason again. Meanwhile, Jason had started an advanced coding program, already building projects that MIT would drool over. One evening, as Alex was flipping through the mail, Jason sat at his laptop, typing away. Alex glanced over. "What are you working on?" Jason smirked. "Just making sure no one else tries to scam us again." Alex laughed. "Should I be worried?" Jason's smirk widened. "Only if you have something to hide, Dad." Alex shook his head, smiling. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Jason had lost a mother, but he had gained something better, control over his own future. And Laura? She was nothing more than a distant memory. The Seattle skyline glittered under the twilight sky as Alex Carter sat on the balcony of his apartment, sipping a cold beer. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain, but for the first time in months, he felt at peace. No more anxiety. No more waiting for the next betrayal. No more Laura. Across the table, Jason was hunched over his laptop, his face illuminated by the screen. His fingers moved swiftly, as if he were conducting an orchestra of algorithms and codes. Alex shook his head. "Are you ever going to take a break?" Jason smirked but didn't look up. "This is my break." Alex chuckled, taking another sip of his drink. His 10-year-old son wasn't just gifted. He was something else entirely. And despite everything they had been through, Jason had handled it better than most adults would have. Laura and Damien? They were gone. The college fund was restored. Their lives were finally moving forward. But Jason, Jason still had one last thing to take care of. Share and comment below, and of course, subscribe for more. A few weeks after the trial, Alex's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He stared at it for a second before answering. "Hello?" There was silence. Then, a shaky breath. "Alex, please, it's me." Alex's grip on the phone tightened. "Laura." He exhaled, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Why are you calling?" Laura sniffled on the other end. I had to. I don't know what to do." "You don't know what to do?" Alex repeated, scoffing. "That's funny. You seem to have it all figured out when you stole from your own son." "Alex, please." Her voice cracked. "I know I messed up. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Alex's voice hardened. "Laura, what you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A selfish, calculated choice. And now, you're paying the price." There was a long pause. Then, in a desperate whisper, she asked, "How's Jason?" Alex's jaw clenched. "He's great. Thriving, actually. Smarter than ever. And guess what? He doesn't miss you." Laura let out a choked sob. "Please," she begged, "just let me talk to him. I need to hear his voice." Alex hesitated for a second. Then he turned to Jason. His son was already watching him as if he had known exactly who was on the line. "It's her," Alex said quietly. Jason tilted his head. "Put it on speaker." Alex hesitated but did as Jason asked. "Jason," Laura breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "Sweetheart, it's Mom. Please, talk to me." Jason's face remained unreadable. For a moment, there was silence. Then his voice was calm, almost cold. "You stopped being my mom the day you stole from me." Laura let out a broken cry. "Jason, baby, I made a mistake." Jason cut her off. "Number A mistake is forgetting my soccer game. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did," he exhaled sharply, "was a choice." Laura sounded desperate now. "Please, I have nothing, Jason. No money, no home, nothing." Jason looked at Alex, his eyes void of sympathy. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before you ran off with Damien." Laura let out another sob. "Jason, please." Jason pressed a button. Call ended. Alex let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "You okay?" Jason simply shrugged. She made her bed. And just like that, Laura Carter ceased to exist in their lives. Life after Laura was better than Alex had imagined. Jason had doubled his college fund, not just through the money he had recovered, but through investments he had personally calculated. One night, Alex walked into Jason's room to find 3 computer monitors filled with stock graphs and code. "What are you up to now?" Alex asked, crossing his arms. Jason smirked. "Let's just say, I'm making sure we never end up like Mom and Damien." Alex chuckled. "Should I be worried?" Jason tapped the screen. "Only if you're bad with money." Alex shook his head, laughing. For the first time in a long time, they were free. No more lies. No more betrayal. Just father and son, building a future together. And Laura? She was nothing more than a cautionary tale. Jason had outsmarted her. Alex had moved on. And justice had been served. A year later, Alex stood at Jason's middle school science fair, watching his son present a complex cybersecurity algorithm, one that had left several college professors speechless. "Your son is incredible," one of them told Alex. "Has he considered a career in intelligence?" Alex chuckled. "He's only 11. The professor smiled. "That doesn't mean he's not ready." Alex turned to Jason, who was watching him with that same knowing smirk. Maybe he was. Maybe he had been ready long before any of them realized. And maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and comment below, and of course, subscribe for more.